everybody, and welcome to another board game review and gameplay demo. Today's is actually going to be pretty special because this is a demonstration particularly that will be very unusual because it is ripe with spoilers. So I'm only going to be talking about very basic mechanics for the game, but I will be talking about all my usual stuff where I say what it's similar to, pros and cons, yada yada, all that good stuff. Now this has become one of my absolutely most favorite games ever, and I am so very excited to talk to you guys about it. The game itself is Time Stories. Now, for me personally, as of right now, I've got the base game, Time Stories, and then I've got the Marcy Case expansion and Prophecy of Dragons. There is another scenario that has come out, and that is Under the Mask. Okay, so the way that it works, for those of you who don't know, is you are a group of essentially sort of like time police type of people. The idea is that you are trying to keep the timeline in order. You're trying to avoid paradoxes and these kinds of things, and essentially bad stuff is going down at certain times during human history, and you need to go and figure out what's going on and fix it. That is essentially the basis for Time Stories. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of it, this is essentially what I referred to in one of my previous videos as a play and burn game, with the idea being that after you have played it once or maybe a couple of times, it becomes frankly kind of boring because you know what you're looking for, you know where to go, you know how to get there, and you can just like run through the game much more efficiently. That said, I will tell you that I have had a lot of fun playing this game multiple times through with different people and all that kind of stuff. I'll get more into that with the pros and cons and just the general conclusions and all that kind of thing, but suffice to say, the base game itself, this acts as more of a platform where the actual games themselves, the actual aspects to the game are contained in these. These are actually just decks of cards, right? I'll show you the one that this comes with. I won't show you either one of the expansions, but I'll show you bits and pieces of the one that's included with the game so that you can just see sort of how the game gets set up and how it briefly works. But I will not be giving you any spoilers, so don't worry about that if you haven't played it. That said, let's move right on ahead and get into what this game is similar to. Essentially, as far as similarities are concerned for Time Stories, we really only need to look as far as some of the other games that are in this same category of this sort of like play and burn type of thing, as I mentioned it before. And we're talking about particularly Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. That is one really major one because in all of these games we are talking about deduction. You know, you're taking disparate clues from different locations, different people, blah, 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 and you're trying to synthesize them all together to solve whatever the overarching puzzle problem issue is, all of this kind of thing. That is really the best and major comparison that I can give. Other than that, we've got things like Pandemic Legacy, Risk Legacy, all of these kinds of things, where again, you've got the same kind of issue of once you play through it, then regardless of what exact path you take, you know enough about what's going to happen that you might not really want to play multiple times. Again, for me personally, at least with Time Stories, I love this game enough that I've played it several times. I have played it with different people though, okay? And that is what really makes the difference. Again, I'll get into that one after I do my brief demo for it. But that said, like those are the major comparisons, with the biggest one being Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, because again, this is all about deduction. It's about remembering clues, knowing where to look, where to go, and just all of this kind of stuff. It's really amazing. But that said, we're going to go right on ahead into my brief demo for this game. Again, I won't give away any spoilers, but I will give you the sort of broad strokes of exactly how the game itself works. So, enjoy. Alright everybody, we're all set up and I'm ready to take you through very briefly on how to play Time Stories. Like I said, this is going to be spoiler free, but I will be showing you some of the stuff that is straight out of the instructional manual. So these are going to be the same images and cards that you'll see in there as well. Now, like I said, the base game itself is really just that. It is a base. You have a board, you've got a bunch of tokens, you've got your dice, you've got your player markers, and
That's pretty much it. That's what it comes with. It also comes with a scenario. The scenarios themselves are really where the game is. That is what you are playing. So in this case, we're going to be talking about Asylum. This is the one that's included with the game. And each scenario will have one or more decks, and they'll be labeled just like this, where there will be a card that says the name of the scenario and the year in which it takes place. Right? At the very, very beginning, there is a bunch of exposition. Like I've said about this game, I love the fact that it does a great job of narrative storytelling, and it just jumps you right in, right off the bat. The very first thing that you get is a location. Now, this is going to act like any other location within this game. The way that locations work is that you'll have a top card that looks like this. It'll just say the name of the location, and then it'll say how many additional cards there are. So you'll put the first one under A, and the rest of them just go in order down the line. Now you may notice that what happens is it creates a panoramic image. It's really cool. I absolutely love it. This happens with every single location throughout every single scenario, right? Anytime you go to a new location, you'll lay out the cards, it'll make a nice little panoramic for you, and you'll get to do all sorts of cool stuff. For this specific one, this is a special one because this is solely for exposition. So all you'll do is the first player will read this card, second player, third, fourth, first, second, etc., however you guys do it. This is solely for the exposition of the scenario itself, what you're doing, why you're doing it, where you're going, blah, 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 blah. All of that kind of stuff. That's what you're getting from this. Now, for the sake of illustration, I'm going to leave these out here when I show you how you're going to be moving around and what you actually do on your turn. Okay? And the other thing is that I'll show you a couple of the other important card types. So first, we've got the item cards. Item cards have green backgrounds, and they start with number 1 and they go to number blarg. We also have the mission cards. The mission cards will have mission successful and others. Those all get piled right here next to the item cards. Again, every scenario has these. The other major thing that we need are the plan cards. The plan cards are actually the map. Okay, this is the main map that'll go up here. I'm not going to flip them over, don't worry, so you won't see what it actually is. But basically, these will have little text, small text for the different locations that you can go to, whether it's a bunker or a cellar or a police station or the pyramids or whatever it happens to be, and you'll put this little token wherever the party is at the time. Okay, and that's how you physically move around. That's how you move around as a group. You sort of just like gather everybody up and you just move to a new place. Okay? Off to the side, we've got these little tokens that indicate that we have unlocked something. We got some kind of a knowledge or some kind of information that will allow us to do something else later on, or some event occurred that has now changed how some other things do, and we're able to look at cards that we may not have been able to look at before. That's what those indicate. We also have these little shield tokens. That is for doing skill challenges, which I'll explain later. We also have little health tokens. Health tokens are given to players when they first start because everybody starts with some number of health. And then we also have 4 different colors of rounded tokens. We've got tan, blue, brown, and green. Okay? These represent pretty much anything. These can represent doses of drugs, med kits, bullets, all sorts of different things. It just depends, again, on the scenario, exactly what's going on with it. Okay? So those you have a bunch set aside. Some of the heroes, some of the characters will start with those, others will not. It just depends on how they work. We also have 6 dice that we use for skill challenges, and we have 1 die that we use to move around. We'll move around all of our characters. Okay? We also have this little marker that we use for the TUs, or the temporal units. This is essentially just our timer for the game, right? This is sort of like, when we move to a location, we spend X number of TU, so we go bop, 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 take a turn, spend a time unit, take another turn, spend another time unit, new location, you roll the die, we have to spend 2, bop, bop, now we're in the new location, and that's sort of how it goes down. You can also lose time units through combat, by losing certain skill challenges, or by just being really unlucky with a specific card, all sorts of different stuff like that. Okay, but this is essentially what the game is going to look like. You'll have your plan cards, you have your item cards, your mission cards, and then your location cards will come and go depending on the will of the group. Okay? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to talk about one of the most important types of cards, which is, I believe they are called the receptacles. These are essentially your character cards. Okay, so this is an example of a character from the Asylum scenario. I already took her out of the game here. So it's kind of nice because the camera can focus on her face, even though her face is exceedingly creepy. Okay. So on the other side of the card, we've got several pieces of very important information. Up here, we've got the different skills that she's got. We've got the resistance during combat. We've got the initial health, so that would be the number of health tokens that you take at the beginning of the game if you take this particular receptacle. And then everybody has like a special power of some sort, but don't bother with that right now. Okay, in the case of Asylum, the three different skills that you have are agility, the green. You've got glibness, which is sort of like charisma type of thing, you know, you got the silver tongue type of thing, and then you've got combat. So you notice that she's got 2, 1, and 2. What that means is that if she is in a skill challenge involving one of those, that's how many dice she's going to be rolling. If it's an agility challenge, she'll be rolling 2 dice. If it's a glibness, she'll be rolling 1, and if it's combat, she'll be rolling 2. Okay, and that's indicated by the specific scenario or the specific skill challenge that you're doing at the time. It'll say it's this type of skill challenge, and this is the goal that you need to get to. This is the number of things you need to defeat, essentially, but I'll get to that in just a little bit. First, I want to talk about movement and what you're actually doing as a group. Now, say this is a regular location, all right? Say it's not the base location, which is just the expositional one. Let's say it's just a regular one, so we all sort of fly in, and we're just like, yeah, we want to go to this place, so we're like, boop, right? So then we lay out all of the different cards. We read this first card, which says, you know, you see a dead person at the far left side of the room. You see somebody standing in a corner, and then you see somebody playing a piano, and then, you know, whatever else it happens to be. This card will essentially give you the overall feel for the new location. And then everybody says, all right, well, I want to go here, I want to go here, and I want to go there. Okay, and then everybody will take their card, read what it says. Maybe it has a skill challenge, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you get an item, maybe you don't. It really doesn't matter. As far as table talk is concerned, you simply can't read what the card said. Don't do that. You can give a general summary of what happened. You can say, oh yeah, I saw this person doing something weird and it had this and this and this. Right? But you don't read verbatim what the card says. Okay? That's no fun. Nobody wants that. The idea is to summarize what everybody else is doing. Okay? So everybody reads their cards, sees what happens. Right? After that, then the skill challenges start if need be. The way that the skill challenges work is they'll say you're doing this specific skill challenge, and you are going up against this specific resistance. So we'll go back to our character over here, and the way that the skill challenges are done is technically we use these little shields at the bottom of these cards. You notice there are 3 little shields down there, so we would have up to 3 stacks. So let's say we have 3 normal shields and 1 skull shield. Okay? It's like that. Well, let's make it 2 skull shields. Make it dangerous. Okay, the skull shields are really bad because if you roll a skull on your skill die, then that means that whatever you're trying to do is essentially trying to hit you back if it's a combat. Okay, that's really what it means. You don't have combat or you don't have that type of thing typically during like a glibness or an agility or something like that. Okay, if you do, it probably means that you just fail instead. So let's say this is a combat challenge. So she has a combat skill of 2. So I've got my shield set up just like this. I've got 3 regular and 2 skulls. I roll them. So I rolled a skull and 1. Okay, so that means that I take off 1 shield. It's the shield that is the farthest to the left. Okay, of the stack, whatever that happens to be. Now, I rolled a skull. What that means is that we add together the total number of skulls that are on the board for this skill challenge. So that's 1, 2, 3 in this case. And her resistance is only 2. Because her resistance did not meet or exceed the number of skulls, she would lose a life point. So she normally has 3 life points, she would lose 1. Okay? If there are 8 skulls there, I would lose 1 life point. It doesn't matter how many skulls there are, you only lose 1 life. Okay? Make sure that that's very clear, because otherwise you die very quickly, and it's not fun. So, that's the end of that turn. The other players, they read their things, nothing really happened. Now what we do is we spend a time unit. When you spend a time unit, that means that you can do other things. You can move around, you can trade if you're in the same location, you can do all sorts of other random stuff, okay? But those are the biggest things, is you're essentially moving to look at a different location, you're moving to help with a skill challenge, or whatever you need to do at the time in this particular location. So let's say they both move to help me with this particular skill challenge. So now we're all there. Now the way that it works when you have multiple people on the same skill challenge is everybody fights, but you choose what order they go in. Because she already took a hit, other people are going to try first. Let's say the person who gets to roll 3 dice goes first. Blam! Alright, so that's 1 more hit and a skull. But we'll say that they're really super resilient and they had a resistance of 3. I don't know if they actually do, but it doesn't matter. Mostly it's because I don't have the other cards out. Okay, and then the other player will roll their 2. Another success! But they took a life hit. Oh no! And now we're back to me with my 2. Oh, come on, big money, big money, big money. Ooh! Oh! Boom! Take that, random scenario that I came up with. Alright, so I rolled 2 successes, which means that both of the remaining skulls will go away, and I don't take any damage. If you roll successes only, or if you roll blanks, there are also blanks on this. If you roll blanks and successes only, then the red skulls do not happen. Okay? Doesn't matter. It's only if you roll a red skull that they're trying to hit you. Okay? Other than that, you're totally fine, and you're just sitting there trying to finish it up. Right? That's really what it boils down to. But the idea is that the items will make you more efficient at different skill challenges so that you can progress through the game faster. Okay? Now let's say we're all done. We finished up with this particular location. We're like, okay, we're done. We're bored of this. We want to go and do something else. And then what you would do is you would say, okay, well, we were here right now. Let's say that we go over there because somebody mentioned that specific location and that it might be kind of cool. Whee! So everybody comes off. We take all the cards off, just like this, stack them back, and then you would go in the deck, get the new location cards, lay them out. As you're going, you roll this, the time captain die, whoever is the time captain. We roll 2, and we lose 2 time units as we are changing locations. And that's pretty much how the entire game works. Again, highly investigative, very, very reliant on the skill challenges to get things done, essentially. That's really what it boils down to. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to say about it. The other thing that I did want to mention, one major thing that is not said in the rules, is please have like pencils or pens and paper. Okay, write stuff down. You will forget, it will be painful, it will be annoying, just do it, okay? It's tremendously helpful. I keep these pencils in the box, excuse me, along with a couple of scraps of paper, just because there's always some little clue or whatever that you know you're gonna forget at some point. The last thing that I wanted to tell you guys about that you may know about this game is that you can actually save your progress, okay? The way that that works is with the box itself, okay? What you would do is you, wherever you happen to be, so in this case I was at 21, so we would take this and put it on the 20, and then we would maybe eventually get that thing out. Fly! Ah, that didn't work. Okay, so then you would take something else and you put it in the 1. So you got 21, just like that. And then what you would do is you would take your deck and you would, excuse me, you would put most of the deck in here, and whatever location you were visiting, you would put in the right side right here. Your big giant cylinders go inside of these, just like that. And then any tokens that you have go into these little rectangular things right there to indicate how much life you have, and if you had any items or whatever. So like you could have some of these green or brown or whatever ones, just depending on the scenario. And then you would put any of these little keys that you earned, you would put on top of this one on the right side. Okay? Other than that, you would take your little dudes, your itty bitty little guys. These essentially just mark who you are when your token is on the table. That's the major cause for them. This is where you would put your character, any item cards that you had earned, all that kind of stuff. You would take your plan cards and put them into one of these as well, or any other collectively owned items and things of that nature. Okay? That's pretty much how the saving works. I really don't like it. I don't use it simply because the insert is really not that good. I mean, you saw how tough it can be to get these things out. So I really don't use it that much, or at least I try to avoid it. But for the purposes of the game, and if you have to play over multiple sessions, it does serve its purpose. So it certainly does work for what it is designed for, which is good. I mean, what more can you ask for, right? So in that sense, it is perfectly fine and it works perfectly well. But the other thing is that I also like to be able to carry around 2 scenarios with me. It's always nice as well. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Like I said, make sure that you have pencil and paper for people to take some notes on, because it makes it tremendously easier for everybody. And really for this game, the most common answer to any question is it's in the cards. So for example, why aren't we using the codex? Well, it's in the cards. Why don't we go all the way to H? It's in the cards. What do we need to do with plans? It's in the cards. Everything is all in the cards. Like what does the brown token mean? It's in the cards. There's a little quick reference guide that comes with every scenario that you should keep with you guys at all times, close by, so that you can see what everything is and all that kind of stuff. Oh, on that note, I forgot to mention the different kinds of shields. So a heart shield means that you lose a life no matter what. If this shield is on the table and it's not gone, you lose a life. Typically these are on the far right side, so those will be the last ones to go. The shield, this is a special kind that is scenario specific, so it just depends on what the scenario is up to. They'll have a definition for what that does. The last one is the shield that has the time unit symbol on it. That means that you lose X number of time units, just again defined by the specific scenario how much it is. So those are the 3 special combat shields that you'll be able to encounter. Other than that, though, that's it for how to play time stories. I know that it was a little bit longer than you may have expected, but again, the game itself is relatively simple. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you give it a chance. But for now, we are going to go right on ahead into some pros and cons, as well as general conclusions about the game.
So everybody, that's it for my demonstration on how to play time stories. Like I said, everything in the base game is really just setting things up for those cards. And you're always going to have questions of what do I do with this particular thing, what do I do with that particular thing. More often than not, the answer to that is it's in the cards. Like at some point somewhere, it's going to be used in the cards at some point. But with that, we'll go ahead and move right on ahead for my pros and cons, as well as just overall conclusions. First and foremost, the pro. The biggest pro for me on this game is this has become, without a doubt, my absolute favorite narrative storytelling game. I love the way that this game is presented. I love the storylines that we're going through. Again, these are the ones that I have. I do not have Under the Mask. I will tell you, small spoiler alert, small spoiler, that we do have an overarching plot throughout the entirety of the scenarios. Yes, each one is individual. Each one you can play them out of order if you want. It really doesn't matter, but we are starting to see the overarching plot. We are starting to see consistency amongst the stories, and then you sort of go back and you're just like, oh yeah, I totally see that, right? Second major pro for me, I love the interactivity of this game. I love the way that it's designed and how the rules are specifically designed so that, you know, you have some sharing of knowledge, but not so much and this kind of thing, because that's the whole point. And I love that fact. I love the way that the designers built that, and just the way that your characters interact when they are in the scenario, so to speak, and all that kind of thing. Another major pro that I like, or I guess this is sort of pro slash con, like I mentioned with sort of saving your game, I like the fact that you can do that. I think it's very helpful. The problem is, like I said, the insert is not that good. It's difficult to use, and the problem is, if you do like I did and you put it vertical or anything like that, basically anything except flat, then everything is going to be falling all over the place, and you're just going to make a huge mess in the box. Okay, so heaven forbid you have saved something in here, and then for whatever reason it gets tilted, then you're in big trouble, and it's just not going to work. But again, I do like the fact that you can save it. I do really appreciate that, especially in a game like this where you're talking about playing through multiple times. Another pro slash con, getting into the cons, is the idea of replayability. This is really the major thing that I had with my video on the play and burn games, is that after you have played it, can you do it again? And more importantly, do you feel like you get your money's worth? So for me personally, again, I have played this game multiple times with different groups. I have played through Asylum several times with different groups of people. I have not played through Marcy Case multiple times. I've only played it through once with my group, and we've only just recently started Prophecy of Dragons. We're not done with it yet, right? So playing through again and again, the biggest issue with it is that you need to have a decent number of people. Yes, you can play through this game with only 2 people, and it does work, but if you have played the game before and you're only playing with one other person who had not, it really takes away a lot of the interactivity, because you know what's going to happen, and of course they're just going to be able to talk to you, and you're just going to be sitting there like, oh yeah, we should totally go there and do that, when in your head you're just like, no, we can't do that, no, and that kind of thing. Whereas if you have, even if it's 2 other people, then they can talk mostly amongst themselves and this kind of thing. One of the other ideas that I have not tried, is to essentially be a moderator, right? Be like, almost like a custodian of like, okay, who's going to go where, what are you going to do, blah, 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 moving the pieces around. It's kind of a lame way to go about continuing the interactivity and having a completely separate group, or like really sort of jury rigging it so that you can have 5 people playing. And I really don't think it would work super well, but if you're really desperate, you could make it work. Okay, so that's like the big pro slash con thing for me. One of the biggest cons in that sense is I'm a little bit nervous about these additional scenarios coming out, because the ones that I've played so far are very fun. I really enjoy them. Asylum, just very brief, very surface summaries of what we're talking about. Asylum has a lot more deduction. It has a lot more puzzle solving aspects to it. Marcy Case has a lot more combat. It has a lot more dice rolling and this kind of thing. And Prophecy of Dragons is effectively reminiscent of D&D. You're talking about a lot of different types of characters that you can play in this kind of thing. All 3 of them so far I am having a good time with. I think they're all very fun, but I can see different people who enjoy different things not liking some of the specific scenarios, and that's what I worry about down the line. Same thing where if you're talking about movies that get too many sequels, they start to become really stupid after not too long, and I'm worried that'll happen with time stories, and it's really unfortunate. One of the other cons is something that's really more just me personally, and it might not be something that you guys run into, but I highly recommend that if you are going to play through one of these scenarios, try to do it in a single sitting. If that means you need to like set aside a Saturday or a Sunday and just play through for like 6 or 7 hours or so to finish it, do it if you can. For me, when I played through Marcy Case with my gaming group, it took us like 4 sessions, and the problem is we did those 4 sessions over the course of like 2.5 months, because it kept being that person A couldn't show up, and then person B was busy, and then person C got into another game at our regular gaming meetup night, and all this kind of stuff. There was all sorts of disparate reasons for people not being able to play. So by the time we finally get to play, we've forgotten like 3/4 of the stuff that happened. Okay, but again, that's more my personal issue when I was playing through it. And if you can manage to just sit down and do it, then it's pretty awesome, and it's a lot of fun. As far as general conclusions and things, I already talked a lot about it at the beginning of this video. I love this game. I love the way that it presents a narrative. It is a wonderful, wonderful game. It's essentially some of my favorite type of storytelling, because I love D&D and Pathfinder and these types of things. I love that we've got sort of different foci throughout the different scenarios as far as the actual game mechanics. I think that the base game, working essentially as a platform, works very well for what this is trying to do. And frankly, I am very excited to see where this overarching plot goes, because I mean, it is interesting. It is very, very interesting, and I'm anxious to get Under the Mask once we're finished with Prophecy of Dragons, which will be, who knows when? I don't know. I don't have a clue. But I know that it's going to be absolutely amazing. If you haven't done so, do give this game a try. All right, if you don't like storytelling in games, if you don't like that sort of like having to remember things, or if you're writing them down, like I mentioned, please write them down. If you don't like that mental aspect of playing games, then this is probably not for you. But if you are in any way inclined towards like the D&D tabletop role-playing style, or even a game like, for example, Betrayal at House on the Hill, something like that that has a very good narrative, this is definitely something that I recommend that you try out. But with that, thank you so very much again for being here. I would love to hear your guys' comments in, well, the comments below. Just what do you think of the game? Have you tried it out? What do you think of the idea of the play and burn games in general? If you've tried Under the Mask, I don't want to hear about it, because I'm not even done with Prophecy of Dragons. There's still a lot of game left for me and my group. I'm very excited to go through it though. But with that, thank you so very much again for watching, and I will see you next time.
Thank you so much again, everybody, for watching my board game review and gameplay demo for Time Stories. Like I've said in several of my videos in the past, I absolutely love this game. I love how it's presented, I love how it plays out, and I just love being able to sit down and play through some of these scenarios. That said, I do apologize for the way that my voice crackled and I was coughing a little bit during the demo portion. I hope that it wasn't too distracting for you. And as always, I do have several of my playlists linked up at the top of the page so that you can see more of my work. In addition, if you want to see more of me in the future, go ahead and click on that big giant subscribe button. Do remember to put any and all thoughts in the comments below, including any games that you'd like to see me review in the future as well. Thank you very much again for watching, and I will see you next time.